Hi quilty friends, and welcome to my little spot in Podunk. My name is Leanne, and today we're going to talk about doing machine embroidery on your domestic sewing machine. So I thought the first thing I would do is show you some quilt blocks that I did back in 2017 that are a UFO, so no judging, no judging. All right, so let's zoom in and take a look at these. Okay, this was a quilt block of the month by Quilt Doodle Designs back in 2017, and the pattern included some handwork embroidery. You can see that down here at the bottom. She shows you how to do French knots and a lazy daisy stitch and a blanket stitch, but I was too much of a lazy daisy to do that. I wanted to get it done quickly, so I replaced some of the applique with embroidery and with machine embroidery, and all of the embroidery stitches she did by hand, I did by machine. But if you'd like to check out this pattern, I will link to it below. It's no longer a free block of the month, but it's a fairly good price. Okay, so here's the first block that I wanted to show you, because it's a little kitty cat, and she's got little whiskers and a little nose, and it was all just straight stitch. And I've got a little dot stitch on my sewing machine that I made these eyes with. I just adjusted it to make it a little bit bigger. And what I did with these was I stitched this way and then I stitched back and cut my thread. That was it. And I did the same thing around the nose and the mouth. It was just 2 stitches. I went up this way and around and back and came back down and then back up into the middle. All right, and then the next one is a little chicken block, and the only thing that I did on this one was the chicken feet. And it was just simple straight stitching, nothing fancy. And the reason why on these blocks I chose to replace some of the applique with embroidery was because she did raw edge applique. These are fairly small applique pieces, and like this spool is really tiny. I did turned edge applique where I turn it under before I put it on here and then stitch it down. And it was just too hard with some of these pieces to do applique, so I changed it to embroidery. But anyway, here's the little sewing machine. So we've got the singer up here that was done with machine stitching. This here and the thread, and both the needle and the thread here are with machine stitching, and right here. Okay, and this is the one that I'm most proud of, and it's where I changed up some of the applique to stitches. And you can see the ball right here. This was supposed to be fusible raw edge applique, and it was just too little for me to cut. I mean, you can see by how it looks up against my hand how small that was. And it's like, oh, I'm not doing that, trying to turn it under, and I didn't want raw edge on this project. So this is just double stitched. You can see that it's side by side to make it a little bit thicker. It's 2 side by side instead of on top of each other. And then up here where the little like screw band would be, that's also 2 lines of stitching. And then down here on the tomato, this was supposed to be, the green part was supposed to be applique, and I changed it over to embroidery. And it's not perfect, but I think it came out pretty good. And then I just did a zigzag stitch for the stem. All right, one more, and that would be this little house block. It's got the little smokestack, which is just this plano stitch, straight stitch. I'm following the line. And then for the windows were supposed to be appliqued and then stitched around. And I decided to use one of my fancy stitches on my sewing machine to make like a valance in the window and just an outline for the window. I wish I had done this in brown or black, but I didn't. So, you know, I still think it looks pretty cute. Not too bad, right? Okay, so that leads me to what we're going to be doing today. Today we're going to be putting a face on this cat. And this cat block is part of my cat blocks of the month for 2022 here on YouTube. And I will link to it below. But with each block of the month, you get a printout, a free PDF printout, and in that printout it's got the block with the cutting instructions but no piecing instructions, and then on the second page it shows the face or the embroidery that will be for that quilt, this or that quilt block. This right here is just a measurement. It's not for stitching, but as you can see, the block up here has the little face, and the date on the bottle. So what we're going to do is we're going to need a light box or a window in order to trace this. So what I'm going to do is underneath my cutting mat here on my cutting table is a light box. So I'm going to remove my cutting mat and turn the lights out so you can see how to trace this. Okay, here we are at my light box, and I've already went ahead and put my template on here so you don't get blinded by this light. And I've got a Mark Be Gone marker. It's a blue water soluble marker, and I'm going to be using it to trace this design onto my cat face. And on my pattern or my quilt block, this rectangle here is the exact same size as this rectangle here. So I'm just going to try to line it up as best that I can. It doesn't have to be perfect. I'm just centering that face pretty much, but I can pull this up and look to see if it's close. And it looks like I can go down a little bit, and you know, you could get really finicky with this and put pins on the corner, but I'm not going to do it. But you can see when I press down on that, I can see that face. So let's zoom in a little bit. I'm going to trace the whole thing as best that I can, not being too finicky. Just doing the best that I can. And that's all there is to it. Let's move it up here, and you'll be able to see the face. See, there's my little cat face, all ready to be stitched. So let's go ahead and head over to the sewing machine. All right, before we get started, let's talk about thread. And I want to say that on the blocks that I just showed you over there, the cute little Dresdens and all the little animals, the farms, I used Aurifil thread, 50 weight on all of it, and but I don't have it in black. So, and I didn't want to buy black because I rarely use black thread. I have some actual, this is Florini embroidery thread that I got with my embroidery machine years ago. I haven't used that machine in probably 6 or 7 years. So I just use the embroidery thread for regular quilting. And I have black hand quilting thread, which is just way too thick for what I'm looking for. And I've got black serger thread. And then I have Gutermann black quilting thread for the sewing machine. And I think what I'm going to go with today is the embroidery thread, just because it's thinner, and I think it'll give me a better look overall, but any of them would work. I almost forgot one of the most important things, and that's interfacing. I'm using the fusible interfacing, and I've cut it to just about the same size as the back of this cat's face, and I will go over and fuse it per the instructions on my interfacing. I'll put a picture of it and link to it down below. Okay, I got my interfacing pressed in there, and I should say that if you're worried about the lines that you drew on your cat face not coming off, because it tells you with the blue water soluble marker not to apply heat, but I've never had any problems. I mean, I didn't press it really hard on there, and but you're not supposed to. So, and I will show you at the very end that I'm going to spray this with water and it will go away. Okay, and I'm going to show you on my little machine card. This is all the stitches that are on my machine. I am going to be using this stitch right here with those 3 lines. And what that stitch will do is it will come forward, go back, come forward, and then it'll jump forward, go back, go forward, jump forward, go back, go forward. So it's doing 3 stitches at once, and that's what I want. A nice thick line all at once. They're all grouped right there together, and once I get to the end, it's done. I don't have to turn around and go back. But if you don't have that stitch, you can turn around and go back. Okay, before we get started, I wanted to show you how the stitch works. And It takes that stitch forward and back, forward. You see it? Forward, back, forward, back, back, forward, forward, back, forward, forward, back. So it's doing 3 stitches in one spot. Now what I did was tie that off. My machine will tie off. And since I didn't bring my thread up to the top, I've got a little bit of a mess right here. I should have brought my thread up to the top and I wouldn't have that little bit of a mess. I might be able to fix that if this were an actual embroidery piece, but I wanted you to see how well that looks, and that you may not even need stabilizer. I just use stabilizer to be on the safe side. This is still laying pretty flat, but it really varies from sewing machine to sewing machine to whether or not it's going to pucker. It's going to matter. Your tension's going to matter. And so far my tension's looking pretty good. Now that doesn't mean that when I get over on this block, it's not going to get just all totally messed up, because stranger things have happened when doing videos. So here we go. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've turned my cat upside down, and I'm going to drop that needle right down where the nose point is. And I'm going to bring that thread up to the top. Do you see that thread sticking up there? Probably not. So I'm going to get my tweezers and come in there and grab a hold of it. Well, maybe. There we go. There's my bottom thread. I'm bringing it up. I'm just going to put it back behind that foot. And I'm going to hand crank this down to make sure I'm going into the same spot. And I'm going to do a couple back stitches. What this is going to do on my machine is tack it. If you don't have a tacking stitch, then you'll want to reduce your stitches down to nothing, to 0, and do a couple tack stitches, jump forward and jump back, and that'll tack it in place so it won't move. But mine will do that all on its own. Okay, so now my stitches are tacked into place, and I can start stitching around that little nose. Now, this is such a small little nose that I may have to stop quite a bit, and you're thinking, oh my gosh, this is going to take forever. But I'm guarantee you this is much faster than hand stitching once you get the hang of it. And here's the thing with the stitch. I wait till it comes down that 3rd time, it's made the 3, then I move it. If I were to move it before it's done completing that 1, 2, 3 stitch, it would make a real big ugly mess because your stitches wouldn't be in the same spot. So it goes 1, 2, 3. Now I can move it to make it, point it to where it's 1, 2, 3. And now I can twist it. And what I'm going to do actually is twist it and cut those threads off. Okay, now we can continue down the other side of the nose. And with machine embroidery like this, it's a lot easier to get nice, smooth, even embroidery with the smaller stitches in small areas like this. That's why I reduced the stitches, but I have gone lower than 2.0 in the past on some of my machine embroidery. And I'm going a little bit slow here for your all's benefit. Okay, that was the 3rd one, right? Uh-oh, I may have just went and opened my mouth. Now, I'm getting ready to head back the other direction. So what I want to do is either come in on the inside of that stitch and stitch on this inside of this stitch here, or over here. You just want it to go right beside it. And I think what I'm going to do is come in to the inside or the outside of that stitch. Okay, I'm just going to twist it. Okay, now I can go down the other side of the mouth. All right, now let's go up in there and start working on that nose. Now it doesn't matter which direction you sew inside the nose. At least in my world it doesn't. Maybe there is a rhyme or reason to it, but I don't pay attention to it. I just say, okay, I think I'm gonna go along this side of the nose. So that's gonna get me up in the nose. All right, now I'm gonna turn it and go to the corner of the nose. All right, now I'm just going to turn it, and you could stitch all the way around or go back and forth. It's really up to you. And I think what I'm going to do is come back down straight right beside that stitch and just keep doing that all the way across the nose. All right, I finished up my little nose, and it looks like I've got a spot right there that didn't get filled in. I don't know if you can see that. And I come off just one little stitch right there. And I could, if I wanted to, come back around, hit that, you know, come up this way on the outside of this. That way it's covering up that little piece that's sticking out. I could go all the way around it again, and when I get up here, I could fill that in. But I'm not going to cry over spilt milk, y'all. You know how I am. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to do my little whiskers the same way. Just go down that line and then come back. But I think what I'm going to do is start on the outside of the whisker. That way I don't have as far to jump. And I'll show you what I mean by jumping. So again, I'm going to start at the end of that bottom whisker. Go down. Pull up my bottom thread. Oh, I got a hold of it this time. Yay. Sometimes I catch my finger on that needle and it hurts like the dickens to do that. Okay. So I'm going to tack it with my tacking stitch on my machine, and that did not tack. I could tell by the way the thread behaved that it didn't tack, so I'm going to do it again. And let's just start stitching up that whisker. Okay, as I was stitching, I decided to bring all those whiskers to a point in the middle, so I don't have to do a jump stitch. I cut those threads, and now what I'm going to do is just turn it and go right up that whisker from the same point. Okay, here's where I'm going to have to do the jump stitch. I'm right at the end of that whisker, and I'm going to tack it. 1, 2, 3. That's tacked in place. Now I'm going to bring my needle up, and then I'm going to turn this around because I'm going to be going down the whisker this way. And I'm just going to pull in that thread a little bit and go down in the end of the whisker here and do another tack stitch. Now that did not tack, and I can tell by the way my thread behaved, so I'm going to do it again. There it went. Okay, and I've got a big bunch of thread there, but I'll trim that off in a little bit. So now I can start stitching down the whisker. All right, let's do a tacking stitch. And cut those threads. And now I can come in here with a teeny tiny pair of little scissors. Come in here and cut those jump stitches off. Now I'm probably going to have to clean this up just a little bit more. There we go. So I've got a little knot, and see if pulling on my knot back here. Sometimes if you grab those knots on the back and give them a little pull, it'll pull those wily threads on the front to the back. There we go. That looks a little better. See? It pulled them to the back. All right, so I'm going to go over and do the other whiskers. We want to start on the bottom whisker on the outside and put it down the very end of the whisker. Go down, go up, pull your thread up. Okay, now we're just going to do another tacking stitch. Okay, now again, we're going to tack it at the very end. Bring my needle up, bring my presser foot up, and bring it over to the other whisker. I'm going to keep that thread out of my way because it makes it make those ugly spots as it did before. Get out of my way. All right, put it right down in the tip of that whisker. I'm just going to hold that thread over here. See that thread sticking out? I'm going to hold it, tack this in place. 1, 2, 3, and that one tacked really well. Thank goodness. Okay, cute little kitty cat whiskers. So I'm going to go in there and cut off that jump stitch. And it looks like there's a little thread sticking up right there on the very end. I'm going to try to get that. And these just aren't close enough. So I'm going to have to get my curved ones out, my curved scissors out in a little bit and fix that. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and do the eyes. And let's just start with the outer part of the eye first. Just drop it right in the corner of the eye. Bring that thread up. Tuck them both underneath your presser foot. Down in the corner. I feel like I'm a robot. Down in the corner. Do a tacking stitch. I'm sorry, guys. Okay. And away we go. Okay, I'm going to tack that. I'm going to pull it out and see how it looks. I'm not sure that I want to do anything more than just those eyes. Let's do something here. Okay, what I'm going to do is put some water on here to see if I like it without doing that center circle. And if I do, or if I don't, I can come back and draw those eyes back on there. But I just wetted down a little piece of fabric and I'm blotting that water on there to see how it looks. And I don't know. I think that I'm going to leave it just like that. Just do the outline of the eye instead of the inside. It seems to suit me for some reason. I don't know why. Maybe it's because I'm lazy. That could be it. Let's put that needle down in the corner of the eye. Bring it up. Got that thread. And I'm going to put that my needle right back down in the corner of the eye. I'm doing that manually. And I'm going to bring my stitches down, all the way down to 0.2 is what I'm going to do. I'm going to go forward, forward, and then back. And that gave me a tacking stitch. Very, very tiny stitches. Now I'm going to take that back up. So I'm just going to take off and start stitching right on that line. Now this time, instead of cutting our thread once we come to the corner, we are going to stitch around that eye again. And I'm going to try to stay right on the line that I just stitched. Okay, so that was the second time around, and I'm going to go one more time. And I noticed that I've got a little gap here, so this time I'm going to go around in the same direction, and we're just trying to stitch right on top. Okay, and we're back to the corner of the eye, so we're going to do that 1, 2, 3 stitch. And I didn't do that because I forgot to lower my stitch. That's okay. We're going to tack it right where it's at. And it is tacked. And I think that's going to be it for me, guys. I'm not going to go in and do the center of those eyes, but you are more than welcome to do that if you want to. I'm going to go ahead and spray this. And what I have is a water bottle full of, it's 1 cup of water in my water bottle. It's soda water, baking soda water. And it's 1 cup of water to 2 teaspoons of baking soda. Okay. Now I'm going to move this out away from my sewing machine and readjust this camera because I don't want to spray water in my electronics. All right, so I'm just going to bring this in here and spray off those little blue lines and watch them disappear. Did you see that? They just disappeared. It's like magic. And they shouldn't come back. That baking soda is supposed to keep those blue lines from coming back on the mark be gone. Cat whiskers are a little bit cattywampus, kind of crooked. Can you see that it's higher on one side than the other? That's okay. That just means she's a little snarky. She's kind of, you know, got that Billy Idol upper lip thing maybe going on. So I can live with that. It's no big deal. So that's how you do a really simple machine embroidery. And if you like this block and would like to join along in my cat quilt block quilt along, it's the first Friday of every month. I put up a new YouTube video, and with each video there is a free PDF. You don't have to download the PDF because I also give the measurements on screen as I'm making the quilt block, and I also put up the full list of measurements that you can screenshot. So I would love to have you join us. Okay, if you like this video, please give it a little thumbs up. Hit the subscribe and the bell notification. That way you never miss one of my videos. Until next time, guys, I hope you find time to stitch up something sweet. I love you. Bye-bye.